Spiritual Christianity, Chapter 5, continued. Point number 73. If it be asked what possible resemblance there can be between these representative appearances belonging to the animal, vegetable, and mineral kingdoms and specific spheres of life, more or less spiritually remote, that the former should be as a mirror in which the latter are seen and known. And the answer is that there is no direct resemblance whatever between them. They are as much discriminated from one another as the expression of the countenance is from any good affection or from any evil passion of the mind, which it nevertheless serves to reveal, or as the articulated sounds of language are from the things signified by them, and which the recurrence of the sounds serves spontaneously to suggest. Not that the connection by correspondence between states of mind and objects of the senses is a conventional one, as the words of language and the things signified by them are usually supposed to be. The relationship between them is no less than the connection subsisting between a spiritual cause and its sensuous effect, in consequence of which each effect represents its own cause, and in each specific variety represents some modification of its own cause. But an attempt shall now be made to explain the ground or reason why specific spheres of life, more or less spiritually remote from one another, and with more or less spiritual affinity, should, to the senses of the percipient angel or spirit, clothe themselves with their appropriate images belonging to the animal, vegetable, or mineral kingdom, and by what law they are recognized in their representative effects. Point number 74. Angels and spirits appear to be surrounded, just as men in the natural world appear to themselves to be surrounded, by a multitude of organized forms belonging to the animal and vegetable kingdoms. All the objects of the animal kingdom display in their internal structure and in their external figure the same harmony and consistency of plan as they do in the natural world. They have the same unity of type, the same law of development in their world as in ours. The simplest animal structure consists of nothing more than a mere sac, a bag with a single orifice for the admission of food, to be taken up and assimilated with the system. This simple sac, which is a representative image in its elementary form of spiritual or mental recipiency, is found through all the gradations of animal development, and in the complexity of the human body, the most perfect of all organized structures. This elementary sac or recipient vessel enters universally into the texture of every viscous and organ of which the body is composed. Externally as well as internally, the entire body, however various and complicated the figures of the different parts, and however distinct their uses, is made up of a congeries of such sacs or recipient vessels. Point number 75. Between the simple animal sac and the complexity of the human body are placed the different genera, tribes, and orders of the animal kingdom, which approximate to their structure and appearance by minute gradations to the bodily structure and aspect of man, but by which approximations depend upon nothing more than modifications and complications of the original recipient sac. By these means a peculiar inward structure and outward appearance are given to every animal, and a certain relationship in its configuration to the representative utility and beauty, which beyond all others are comprehended in the human body. Man alone in his bodily structure presents in the representative signs of a capacity for the due subordination of the senses and their delights to the powers of reason and to the government of a heavenly will. In every other animal structure, that subordination and harmony are representatively disturbed. In them, the senses and the organs which are subservient to sensual life are developed beyond their due proportion compared with the same organs in the human body. And the representative images in the brain of the higher powers of the mind are proportionally diminished, and in their departure from the perfection of the human body become less and less complex in their organization. In the lowest there are no traces of a brain, nor of a filament nerve, nor of a distinct organ of the senses, and at length nothing seems to remain to distinguish it as an animal, except the obscurity of a general sense analogous to that of touch. Point number 76. The unity of plan which can be traced in every member of the animal kingdom, and in consequence of which it bears a certain resemblance more or less to the human body, is strikingly displayed to the rudimental or fetal conditions of human and of other animal bodies when they are compared together and traced upwards through the different stages of their development. As far as they have been examined by naturalists, and the examinations have been conducted to a considerable extent and with great care, they present a series of transfigurations or metamorphoses, beginning with the simplest and passing through all the intervening graduations until that point is reached which in its elaboration belongs to the species of which the animal is born. In the course of these metamorphoses, the human body passes in the progress of its fetal development through the different stages which belong to the lower genera. The permanent states of all the lower animals when they have reached their full development are analogous to one or other of the rudimental conditions of the human body. They all undergo the like transfigurations. Each, according to its species, stops short at a certain point and is then born. But man alone goes beyond all the points of development which they can reach, and presents in the elaboration of its structure, and in the harmony and subordination of its parts, a representative image of the capacities which the mind possesses of attaining its truly human or heavenly form. Point number 77. In order of their fetal development, animals of the class Mammalia, which are warm-blooded and which suckle their young, being the highest in the scale, pass through all the structural conditions of the animals lower in the scale of development than themselves. An embryo of this class, in the very first period of its conception, has a structure of the very simplest kind, analogous to that of the lowest animal, being of a pulpy consistency, having no traces whatever of any nervous filament, but which possibly has nervous globules interspersed through the cellular mass. From this it passes, in the progress of its development, into a structure analogous to that of animals, which have nervous globules arranged longitudinally so as to form the rudiments of nervous filaments. From this it gradually advances until it reaches, through the intermediate structures, one analogous to that of a fish, having a brain, not indeed like the full-grown human brain, but similar in the relative proportions and simplicity of its parts to the same parts in fishes. Its circulating system is that of a fish. It has the imperfect heart of a fish. It breathes not atmospheric air, but has lungs fitted for a denser medium. In this stage of its development, the human embryo has rudimental arms and legs, analogous to pectoral and ventral fins of the fish, and like the fish, it has a projecting tail. This last undergoes a metamorphosis by absorption, and then by imperceptible degrees it is changed in the different systems of the body, not synchronously, but at varied dates of progress, into the several structures of the amphibious animal, the reptile, the bird, and the mammal, until it passes into its closing transfiguration, which ends the term of its uterine existence, and it is born, the living representative image of a man. Point number 78. In agreement with the same law, the bird, too, in its fetal state, passes through a succession of analogous changes, each one more complicated and relatively perfect than the preceding, and bearing a structural resemblance to one or other of those permanently developed orders which is lower in the scale of animal existence. The bird, too, admits of no higher development than that of the parent birds. There it stops, presenting a general structural plan similar to that of the mammal, but falling short of the mammal in the harmony of its structure, as well as in the complexity of its development. Point number 79. Such, briefly, are the natural affinities of organisation which are displayed in every part of the animal kingdom, and such are the affinities of resemblance when they bear to the rudimentary conditions of the human body. In heaven, none but animals of beautiful and of gentle kinds appear, for the spheres of evil and of falsehood, which belong to a man's natural state, and which serve to produce animals of a hurtful and repulsive kind, are then removed from the generated spirit. By the outward appearance of the animals which are presented to his senses, he knows with an accuracy and perspicuity proportioned to the intelligence and the wisdom of his love, the peculiarities of their structure, and the various affinities which they bear to the structure of the human body. The apperception of these facts reveals to him at once the peculiar spheres of life, and the degree of their remoteness from the percipient being, which have given birth to the representative appearance. Point number 80. Angels are associated together by the original forms of their mind, or their tendencies to specific uses, and by their aptitude in the accomplishment of these uses. They are associated, also, according to the degree which they have reached in the generation of these forms. The original form of the mind is the spiritual providence in which the man is born, and for the heavenly uses for which he is created. Minds, linked together by congenial uses in one social form, bear a certain relationship more or less remote, that is, more or less internal to other social forms, or to other provinces in the universal human form of heaven. In this respect, it is with the spiritual provinces of heaven, as it is representatively with the natural provinces of the human body. There is a representative connection between every part of the body, however remote these parts may be from one another. The representative uses of a single viscus or member are connected with the uses of the whole. But the connection and the uses of the different parts are more or less intimate, more or less direct. Each has a relationship with all the rest peculiar to itself, both in measure and in kind. So it is with the social forms of heaven. The universal sphere of love and wisdom, which, received by influx from the Lord, are appropriated by the whole heaven, are communicated to each society, and are essential both to its existence as a society and to the conscious life of every member. But the provinces of the universal form stand in a different relationship to every society and to the individuals which compose it, according to their various affinities or to the congeniality of these spiritual uses. The influx of the combined spheres, which are comprehended in the universal heavenly form, is received after a different manner by each society according to its social form, which form is determined by the quality of its uses. Its uses, without changing their original character, progressively become more excellent, as well as more expansive, by an increase in the numbers of which it is composed. Because in greater numbers there is a greater variety of spiritual forms, and in the greater variety there is the capacity for a more perfect union. Point number 81. Whatever animals are beheld in any society are to the percipient angel the representative images of these spiritual relationships. They represent to him with the utmost exactitude and with a fullness of instruction proportioned to the capacity of his mind for the admission of interior light from the Lord, affinities of states of various kinds and degrees, and by these they reveal to him the state of his own mind. Remote affinities, or affinities of an external kind, and the indirect uses of those affinities, bear a certain relationship to the spiritual form of the percipient angel and to the uses of his society. And these are represented by animals of various kinds. Near affinities of state, or affinities of an internal kind, are represented by the superior beauty and harmony of proportion, which are displayed in the human body. As every animal structure, according to the degree of its development, bears a resemblance more or less remote to the perfection of the human body, that representative relationship is recognized as the effect or sign of a spiritual relationship. Along with the intuitive apperception of animal structure, he perceives the relative quality of the spiritual sphere, which gives birth to the sensuous appearance. Its spiritual distance from the form and uses of his own society, or the remoteness of their spheres of life, the uses which those remote spheres promote, their peculiar qualities and the changes which they undergo, all stand revealed to him in the animals which are exhibited before his senses. Their generic and specific forms, their position in the appearance of space, and their motion or change of position in the seeming progress of time, are all significative. In truth, there is not any one thing, how trifling whatsoever it might be to the natural man, and accidental as he might think it, which does not signify, or which is not a representative sign of the spiritual sphere of love and wisdom, both as to its measure and the difference of its kind, which gives the corresponding image birth.